So, CSI 252-60, Introduction to Web Design. And we're back at it. Sorry for a bit of a delay there. We've got some family medical emergencies we've had to deal with. But we left our last episode, we left our heroes off working on tables. And I had mentioned that not only can you put information into tables, which, pretty natural thing to do. We do that in documents. We do it on web pages all the time. But you can use tables to lay out your web page. We'll be using CSS, the cascaded style sheets, to lay out, help us lay out and stylize our web pages in a consistent manner. But tables can be an easy way to create some structure or architecture in our web pages so that they're consistent. And that's what we're going to do here. At our first, we have 4 documents that are all CSI 25260 web page week 05_0001 through 0004.html. And if I go over here, you can see that they are right here. There's some vocabulary, and there's a couple other examples right here that will show us, some more of what formatting with tables, doing layout with tables can look like. Perhaps we should, let's see, will this open up as a picture? No, it downloads. So I'll open that up. Let's see. So this is our, it's a screenshot I took. And here we have some HTML. We have our doc type tag. There's a comment up here we use to show where this, what file this is. We have HTML and end of HTML. Head, end of head, body, end of body. And then the next thing we have is a table. And the table has table row, end row, table row, end row. So it has 2 rows. But one of the things I wanted to show is that in HTML5, we have tags, and tables, one of our tags we've learned. And we have tag parameters. For instance, we have width is a parameter, and we have a tag parameter value. Width equals quotation marks 100% quotation marks. Here's another parameter with its value and another parameter with its value. And we can see down here as well, we have the beginning of a row. We give it a background color, and we have so that's a parameter with a value. And then we have another type of parameter called a style parameter, and the style parameter itself can have a lot of kind of sub parameters, if you will, kind of style specifiers and their indicators. So here's one style, border colon 1 pixel solid black. So this one just has one style element in it, if you will. And here's another one where we actually labeled it. These are HTML tag style parameters. Okay, so that they are parameters, but they're specifically style parameters. And this one has text align colon center. So the text will be centered in this line. And the same in the in the next row. There's in each row, here's the first row, TR and NTR, and there's table data and end table data. So each row only has one cell, and the first row has a table data item in it. It says H1 style text center : align, end of that tag. A header for every page goes here, and then end of H1, end of header level 1, and headers in quotes, just to kind of give a title to that page. And then in the table data that's in row 2, here's your TR and NTR. I put, you can put, and then a break, the rest of break, this page's break, content here, and that's centered also. You see the text align center parameter value for the style parameter right there. So then I made this comment: the style parameters are what we put into style/style tags up in the head section. Last week we were able to embed a style that we could reuse and apply to paragraphs or something like that. And so we can have just the default elements, like default paragraphs, and then we can have paragraphs that embody the style that we specified in the style and style tags, and had kind of stored up in the end head section, so that the page would be ready, have them ready to display when something down here called on them to use that style. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to go in these separate cascading style sheets, or CSS files. All right, and we'll get into that after the break. But at any rate, I just wanted to reiterate this little bit of vocabulary here, and that's what that's all about. So you have that thing to look at. So our very first example here, this one that ends in 0001, has your HTML and end HTML, head, end, head, body, end, body, and then the body is totally taken up by a table. I'm trying to keep things simple. It's the same example as I just showed for vocabulary purposes there. This one is a table. Its width is 100% wide. Cell spacing is 0. That means words go right to the boundary of each table cell. And the border is a 1. And in the first row, table row, TR, and end table row /TR. So the table row, the background color is AAFFAA. Now, these are hexadecimal codes that make colors, and you'll see that color. And the style will be, the border will be 1 pixel in solid black. And the table data in there, it will just be a center aligned header 1. There's an H1 and an end of H1, and that text is aligned. It says a header for every page goes here, and then the 3 lines of text that I put down here also centered in the next row. So let's take a look at that page, and that happens to be number 4. Let's take a look at number 1. So number 1 is here, and I put the table boundaries in so you could see what's going on. Here's a very simple thing. We could put an entire web page right in here in between the see our table data, style, text align center, and then end of table data. Not that it has to be centered, but you can put all your content right in that table data item. And number 4 is this exact same thing, but we suppress the boundaries. So you could have a background color up here. You could put a small logo as an image inside this table data cell for part of the first row, or you could even split this into a couple of table cells. This top row, and one holds an icon, and the other has, I don't know, the current date, and then, you know, the title for the page goes over there, and you know, that's a style. That might be what you want to do. And then you can put the rest of the page as content right here, and it will, you know, it will push down the bottom border of the table as necessary to display everything. So, you know, there's the basic example of just a 2-row table providing a skeleton for you know, your page. And if you use this on every page, let's say you have a link in here and you click and go to another page, that page's header, you know, if you do the same thing you did with this page, that page's header could be up here in green, and the content for that page could be down here, and that way people see a consistent kind of header, and maybe one puts a backlink, so you know, when you click on it, it takes you back to the first page you were on. Also, part of the, let's go back here. Sorry, wrong one. So if I go back to my text editor, which is here, the if I look at number 2, it's very much like number 1, and most of the difference is up here. I add a couple of other things. I say the width is 60%, so I'm not going to make the table as wide as the whatever the web page is. I'm going to make it about 60%. Cell spacing 0. That just means that cell contents go right up against the border in each cell. And the border is 1 pixel solid black, and the margin left auto, margin right auto means anything in there will be centered. I'm sorry, the table will be centered on the page. That's what that means. We still have our green thing, and the table row will be green, and it'll say a header for every page goes here just like before. The bottom will be just like before. And this in this one we will have a border, and so if you want to see what that looks like, I'll load the file that ends in a 2. This is one thing I noticed, is that I got a border, but I didn't get a border for this top thing. And I think this is common in HTML. It's not always obvious, especially with tables, how to have, you know, an outside bounding border and a border between every cell. So what I did is I went to, that's number 2. I went to number 3, I believe, and the table has a border, and then the top table row, the TR, has a border with the same, you know, style equals border, colon, 1 pic space solid space black. But it's not only in the table style, it's also in that top row style. And when I do that, we're looking at the file that ended in number 2. Now let's look at the file that ends in number 3. And that you know, gets that border, so the top and the bottom, you know, are now separated by a border if you want that. You can even get rid of the outside border like we did in the other in 04, 0004. We got rid of all the borders, and this ran the whole thing. If you want this to run 2/3 or whatever, 60%, whatever it is, you can do that, and you can just leave off these border parameters, and you'll have it. So just 2 other things to look at, actually. I want to show you a more complicated example, but I didn't want to use it as our teaching example because you kind of have to stare through it. And he's got a lot of stuff in there. But here's one. He's created a table, and if you look, this top row, there are actually 3 columns in this table, but he's using that colspan, COLSPAN parameter, so that this top one will span all 3 columns. And then I think there must be a row span in this one, so that one block, this one colored purple now, or periwinkle or something, will cover these 2 rows. And so let's just take a look at the code that's in there to see how it gets, this all subdivided. This thing over here is like a table within a table. It says graphic goes here and simple caption underneath. And it might be a style that's useful, and you can use it on a number of different pages and get some consistency. So people are always reminded they're still on your they're still at your website as they go to the various pages in the site, and they get an idea of how to navigate around. Over here in the navigation bar, each of these lines, they're just text now, but they could be A space href equals. These could be links. People click on them to go to different places. And now here's a back button. I have not modified it. This will take me back to his original website, I believe, doesn't it? Yes. Here's his original website. So you can find that in the code if you want to look at it. And he explains a lot of things. The one thing that you have to watch out with his website is he uses a tag, the center tag, CENTER. The center tag is not operative in HTML5, and that's why we use the parameter style equals text dash align colon center. That's the way you center things in HTML5. Now, so let's look at his code, if I can, and of course I can. And so he's got an HTML and an end HTML down at the bottom. He has script and end script. We haven't talked about this yet. He actually runs a little bit of JavaScript, and here's where he defines a particular JavaScript function. And so, not important at this point in time, but just letting you know, you see the word script. If you've ever heard of JavaScript or people talking about it, he's providing a JavaScript function here that can be called. And not necessary to do that in this case. He could have done it without that. But so he's once you get into the body section, here's the body tag on page 12, and down on page 82 is the end of body tag, and in between there is nothing but a table, and that table, they use the T-body tag. We didn't use that before, and you don't have to use it. It's but it allows you to further define things in your table. He's just using it there without really taking advantage of it. So he has some table rows. I see one row, I see another row, I see a let's see what we have here. We have table row. I put in the indents just because it helps me stay sane. Then on this table row, you'll see another table in there with some stuff. Remember, graphic goes here, and then there's a simple caption down there, and then that table row ends, and then there's a third table row, call span 2 with a certain color and a bunch of those break characters, and then the end of that row. And a little bit further down at the bottom of the table, at the bottom of the table, there's a paragraph where the text is centered, and in that paragraph is an A space href equals, and this is the place where that file came from. So you have that record there. You can always look it up. And once again, here's the top. This has a call span of 3. And if I look up here, you can see table, and it takes up the whole width of the page, so it's 100%. It does have a border, so the border equals 1, and the cell spacing is set to 0 because we can. All right. Now, once we get on here, TR style text align center, so this top row is, things are going to be centered in there. And there's only one data item, but it has a call span of 3, about that same green background color, and a font size of whatever 6 means in HTML. It says the title region. And we go back to this, and you can see it says the title region up there. And then the next row has a cell, another cell, and then a table where that third cell would be. And let's see how that's formatted. So here's the next row, and it says TD row span equals 2. Color is different. The width is 20%, and the vertical alignment is toward the top, and the style is text align center. And it says click here, and then it has a list. Right here, an unordered list, UL, and there's a list item, navigation, with a couple of returns, another list item, bar, a couple of a couple of breaks, BRs, and then another list item says goes, and yet another list item says here. So when we look at this, we see that here it says click here, and then it says navigation bar goes here. And let's see what got us those bullets. It says navigation bar goes here, and row span equals 2. So instead of col span, it says row span. That's why this guy uses up 2 rows. See how tall he is? He covers 2 rows. And then sorry. It says row span equals 2, meaning it's going to span across 2 rows. It says click here, navigation bar goes here. So that's the navigation bar. And it has list items. The list items is what gives us the bullets. So it's an unordered list. And it says, one of them says navigation. It's got a couple of dividers. Bar, a couple of dividers. Goes, couple of dividers here. And there's another divider. And so that's how that happens. Then if we go over another table data element, we have subheading text goes here. And so here's our second text our table data item, TD and an NTD, and it says subheading in header level 3, and it says text goes here, and it gives you a different color, DDEEFF, and a V line of top, and you can see we have yet another color over here. Subheading and text goes here. They're aligned to the top. They are justified to the top. All right, and then the next table data item seems to have another table with 2 rows in it, and let's take a look at that. So here we go. Here's a table data item. It starts here, and it goes down to end table data item right here. And what's in there? Well, I see a table that's it says full width, height is 100%, BG color, blah blah blah, T body, and then it says there's one row. It says graphic goes here, and then that row ends, and then that's the end of that table body. And within the data element, within the table data element, there's that one row table. It says graphic goes here, and then there's a paragraph with center alignment attribute that just says simple caption, and it'll be italicized because it's got the emphasis tags EM and /EM. And so when we look up here, this guy is a one row table. Graphic goes here, and this guy, simple caption, is right there. So we got one more table row, and it will have looks like it have a column span of 2 because it's got to expand this column and that column. So let's go span this column and that column. Must have it precious. So here we go. We have one more table row. It has a column span of 2. It has a different color. More text here, a whole bunch of those breaks. End of table data, end of table row, end of table body, end of table. And then there's a paragraph down there that is has the attribute of text align center, and it says aref, and it takes you back to his original website, and the text is back. So we look at this, and here it is, more text here, column span of 2. It's got the same color as this guy does, and there's the back button, and like I said, you can press that and go back to his original website. So, you know, there's an example of kind of creating some regions, and you know, your content will fill these up. Maybe some of these regions you want to keep the height exactly what it is, but like this region, more text here could just expand down as would this navigation bar, and you can put any content you want. And so now you got some formatting that could be consistently on every page. And the last thing I will show you is a different version of his without any borders. Let's see if I got that right. Yeah. So it's all the same thing. Almost. I guess that thing has a border, but that's meant for a graphic or something. But you can see these guys here have no borders, and you know that can be nice because you know people don't want to see too much delineation when they look at something. Maybe you would have wanted a line there, or just change these 2 colors, or you know, whatever. But there's an example of that same website without any boundaries on the tables. So that's just a little overview on using tables to sort of format your website. And you just kind of play around with that stuff. You know, when you look at websites now, you may say, that looks like it might have a structure created with a table. I think it's going out of style now. All the websites we've looked at and then tried to look at the code for have had very fancy code with a lot of JavaScript. So people are doing things other ways, but this is a way to get some layout. The next thing we'll talk about is called an image map, where we can have some kind of image and define regions in that image that when you click on them, it can be a link to go to another web page or something like that. So that's all I want to say about the formatting a web page using tables. The tables, not only can they hold data, but they can sort of structure your whole content, and you can use them as sort of a consistent style template, if you will. Our goal is to use the cascading style sheets, the .css files that we're going to learn about in the second half of the course, and do some of that stuff. But sometimes you do it that way, sometimes you do it with code that's in your HTML, that's on your web page in HTML code, and we'll see some examples of that. So see you next time, and I will post some homework for the last couple of weeks where I've kind of been absent without leave, but it'll be based on lectures like this one, and I'll make sure that it's not too crazy. All right, take it easy and see you next time.